Today, we have the honor and privilege of speaking with Katrina Kibben, author, speaker, and trainer. They specialize in helping create memorable experiences for candidates and helping HR and TA teams create systems that actually work. Kat is the author of The Bounce Back Factor that was just released, beautiful book, and also another book called This Was All an Accident. It's really truth-telling about work-life balance and the fact it's not there. Kat drops a lot of really great tactical, strategic knowledge that every employer and every person seeking a job needs to hear. Let's jump in, shall we? People Work is proud to present Strategic Shift, a podcast dedicated to exploring the future of work. Thank you for joining us as we hear stories of bold decisions and workforce innovations. I'm Christy Honeycutt, and I'm your host. Kat, I know that my introduction does not do you justice, but I would love for you to share with our audience a little bit about you and what you do.
Yeah, so my background was in EVPs, employer brand, technical copywriting. I think you and I first met digitally many, many years ago while I was writing a blog called Recruiting Daily, and got a lot of practice. My joke is that I got a PhD in recruiting while I was over there because all I did was talk to smart people and write about it. Talk to smart people and write about it. And now, fast forward a few jobs and experiences later, I run a company called 3 Ears Media, and it's named after 2 dogs with 4 ears. And we specialize in recruitment process consulting, which is business slang for we try to address the problems you hate, the systems that don't work the way you expect, and creating experiences that actually make you feel what you want to feel. And our specialty is in job postings and skills architecture. So how do we deeply understand a job so that we can use that data to achieve all of our AI aspirations?
And I know that you used to be with Monster back in the day as well.
Yeah, that fun fact, I was Monster.com's very first social media hire.
Wow, that's huge.
Yeah.
That is crazy. So I would love your insight because we're going to talk about all things talent, but your insight on Monster back in the day was like the place you wanted to be. That's where everybody went for jobs. And now obviously everything has changed and we've got AI that's competing and helping. So how do you see that landscape where we've got candidates looking for a job and employers trying to get the job messaging out there? How have you personally seen that shift?
I think at its core, the functionality is exactly the same, and that's part of the problem. Is because it works the same way it did in 2009 when I was working there. But you and I, the people who use this technology, and I say that broadly as to cover all recruiters, all candidates, both sides of that marketplace, the reality is we changed. When the pandemic happened, when there's been a series of political events that are creating uncertainty in the market, when we have economic uncertainty, there's just a lot of layers, and all of those condition people to want connection, right? So,
Yes.
and I think at the bottom of this and the reason, the evolution that's caused or the withdrawal from job postings is because they don't do anything to create trust. Job boards were so transactional, and now people want trust.
I love that you said they don't create trust. I know you're very passionate about the candidate journey, which is, it's attracting, it's instilling trust and respect. There's just so much trust that's broken. And I've mentioned this before, but the average American citizen gets 7 points of fraud a day. I get probably 3 job offers a day on text from who knows who for an hourly job. So clearly they don't know me and what I'm looking to aspire to be, right? It's just random. It's fraud. It's just junk. How would you encourage organizations and candidates to kind of see through what's not real and what's real? Because we're dealing with not just the outreach that's not real and the fraud, but then you've also got the candidates that are leveraging AI, which is great, but now recruiters can't tell the difference. And are they truly qualified, or is this chatbot GPT resume?
It's really, really complicated. I don't think anyone has a great answer, but I definitely have a few thoughts on it. The first one being that I think we need to remember that all signals are not valuable. And this is a really
Hmm.
important thing that we actually learned a couple years ago during 2016 when we started to see likes starting to influence outcomes in our lives, right? When we all started talking about algorithms and all of these things that we really didn't understand, because at that time, those algorithms were built in such a simple way. If you like a series of things that all have to do with this, we're going to show you this. And that algorithm got wildly out of control. And I bring that up because now that we're sitting in the consequences of algorithmic influence, now that we're getting the fake resumes, now that we're getting 3,000 applications when we are expecting 300, we need to be really smart about the signals that we look at as valuable and the signals that we do not value, right? So all signals are not equal. And I'm specifically talking to you, retargeting companies who find out that one person applied to a job on Indeed and then follow them for the next 16 days with ads about working at Amazon. If you're not watching the video version of this, you didn't see the side eye that I just gave the screen because
Mic drop.
really? You know what I mean though? Like that all signals are not equal, I think is the first thing that teams need to start thinking about. And that is a good philosophy for figuring out what fake means too. There are great technology vendors that are working on this problem, and I have to give a shout out and a fully transparent. I work with Greenhouse. I'm part of a ethical advisory board that is there to help them learn how to validate candidates. So the other thing I would tell you is, as much as you want to dig into your signals, this is not a build versus buy. You need to trust the expertise of your vendors and start having conversations about how they define what a fake is, how they're coming up with that, and remembering to think about like the ethical quandaries here too, because for trans people, for example, their names change at some point in their life. That's going to influence a background check. That's going to influence other things. And there are just a lot of layers that we need to consider. And remember, all signals are not equal.
I love that you said that, because I don't know that and I've got 20 years in talent, thought about that specific part, right? And how do we elevate everything for the community so it's fair for everybody? Because we've got a big community that's trying to get back to work. And so when we look at our community and the different levels they're in, we usually hear entry level, mid level, senior level. And I think that the workflow for those levels are changing. I feel like they need to change, because for so long, I know the workflows have always been kind of salary friendly, right? And now I think we're seeing that, our frontline workers need maybe a different process or a different path. I'm just curious what your insight or point of view is on that.
Yeah. Uh, I think we need to start valuing people again. I know that's
Yes.
not like a woo, big reveal, right? But the headlines are telling you AI is going to replace your people. And I'm here to tell you that your people are by far the most valuable asset you have. And here's why. And I'm not saying that because I'm like, people are special or any of that cushy crap. I'm saying it because I have deeply invested my energy and learning into understanding and researching what the core differences are between a fully fledged machine, the full value of what AI could be, and people. What happens if AI can do all the things that everyone tells us it's going to be able to do? What will make a machine different than a person? And when you peel back those layers, and now I have gotten perspectives from many different researchers, many different professors, research papers. I listen to audiobooks that are so boring at the gym in the morning, okay? But it's because I think we have to fundamentally understand the history of machines to understand the future of machines. And I'm saying all of this because context is king. And those
Mm.
frontline workers are the beginning of the context that you need for the future of work. And the longer we undervalue our entry level and frontline workers, the more we undervalue the real value of your business, because they are the experience and they are the future of your business, whether it's 5,000 people or five.
I got goosebumps. I don't know if you said that loud enough for the people in the back listening, but that is amazing. And Kat, I know that you're one of our industry's best thought leaders. You've recently written a book. I would love for you to share with the audience about that. And it's going to be on my go get when we jump off this call.
You're the best. I mentioned how I was researching what makes people different than machines. This isn't a new thing for me. And I realized one of the things that makes people better than machines is how we face uncertainty, right? A machine can't face uncertainty. It can't calculate a formula you never wrote. It can't develop an outcome it's never seen before. That's not where we're at with machines right now. And let's be real, that is a far off concept, no matter how much those vendors love to slap it on the back of their HR tech booth, okay? So what I wrote my book about is how to navigate uncertainty with confidence. It's called the bounce back factor. And the bounce back factor is the muscles we use when uncertainty happens. Because as much as everyone is giving you a different prediction about the future of work, I think the only one that all of us 100% agree with is that all of us need to get better at navigating uncertainty. That is ahead. What you do with it, we'll see, because most of us were trained on a formulaic, systematic career, and that's just not what's coming. So how can we prepare ourselves and therefore prepare our teams to make this change? Because if there's one thing that I realized through my lived experience that fueled this book and in my life is that if you don't change, you the leader, nothing changes. Let me say that one more time. If you don't change, nothing changes. That applies at work and in your life and in all the things.
Yeah. It's interesting. What's that movie? There's an old football movie that I love, but it talks about team reflects leadership, right? And that's what it makes me think of. It's what they would go, left side, strong side, right side. What movie was that? The Titans.
It was.
Remember the Titans. Yes. Very good inspirational movie, by the way. I love underdogs. I love that you said that. And I know that we're both passionate about leadership and really not passionate about crappy leadership, right? I was just at HR Tech, and I'm sure you were as well, just this past, 2 months ago. And it was interesting because I was interviewing people on the floor and I was looking around, and one of the comments came up: how do organizations differentiate themselves? You talked about talking to vendors and asking them the questions and how trust is important. And you said it yourself, like they slapped that sticker on the back and marketing's great and we change terms for everything. But the genuine, what I'm finding in the market is that most HR talent folks are not sure who to trust or who to go to because the salespeople are so slick and shiny and pretty and you've got all this great stuff. But at the end of the day, they all kind of sound the same. And I'm just curious if you've got advice for those leaders that want to be good leaders, but don't have the clarity to kind of cut through the marketing. And I know we both have a little bit of a marketing background, so we know how we can make things sound good and shiny and pretty. But at the end of the day, how do we empower the buyers to understand and ask the right questions?
Yeah. So I think the real goal here, and frankly, I think the real potential of AI that we're not tapping into right now is that AI is there to improve the experience. So step one for any team that wants to use AI is to define what a good experience is. Remove the pieces, remove the standards, remove how things have to work right now, and to just baseline define what a good experience looks like. I heard someone describe AI in a really interesting way that I think will help with this understanding and help all of us understand our role here. So if we paint a picture, we paint it brushstroke by brushstroke. If AI paints a picture, it takes a completed picture and takes it apart, stroke by brushstroke. And so it's your job to draw the first picture and let AI take that picture apart to start to create the experience. That's how we create that balance of infusing great logic and reason and into a technology experience that can be replicated. Because let's face it, if you don't know what good means, no HR technology can spit that out the other side. It's just not going to happen.
That is the best way I think I've heard that put in a really long time. So thank you for that. Well, and I know that you're super passionate about the candidate experience and you meet with a lot of organizations. And like you said, that's where it starts. What does good look like? What do you want it to look like? Where do you see that are some easy flags for organizations out there that should be looking at this experience? What are like the top three that you call out?
So I'm a little biased on this first one, transparently, but I always hire someone from outside to audit your candidate experience. And here's why. You know too much. Every single one of the people on your team knows, at least they expect what's going to happen. Mentally, they know what's happening behind the scenes, and you cannot provide a good audit of a machine that you have expectations about. So first thing I would do is if you genuinely want to improve your candidate experience, hire someone to do an audit who will tell you across the key touch points, your job posting, your career site, your emails, and all of that, who will spell it out for you what you should do and give you a choice about whether you want to do this or not. Do not hire consultants who give you the illusion, who are like, I'll give you this audit. And then they'll be like, and if you hire me for 12 months of consulting, I'll improve the candidate experience. That's like saying, I will take you to Oz. Where is it? Where are we going? Truly, like, take a step back and hire someone who you trust to be ethical and honest with you about what the problems are and to allow you to apply your expertise, because you know your business better than most consultants do. The second thing I would tell you, and this is another project I've been taking on a lot lately, is writing help text. Really good help text. And I love this because it helps the hiring manager experience, but it also can be highly impactful for the candidate experience. So let's start with the hiring manager experience. So if they enter the job description information to help you get started, maybe, right? Giving them some help text and telling them what to put there and what's helpful for you to get helps you get better outputs. Again, this is not rocket science. This is creating better experiences by being systematic and setting expectations. Alternatively, with the candidates, so something I'm working with Greenhouse on is what help text can we provide to someone completing a background check so they understand why they have to give you that information.
I
So
love
we
it.
can build trust in real time. And it all goes back to trust. What are trust building activities that we can do? Because I am betting on the fact that at some point, both or one side of the recruiter candidate equation is going to stop trusting this process, and we're going to have to change.
That's very, very interesting. I know that I have always done audits, right? Anytime I've gone into a new job, I would always do an audit. Or even if you think about when you've applied in the past, it's fun because you know you're going to talk to people responsible for it. And you're like, hey, I know you're considering me for this. Let me tell you where your system's broken, whether you hire me or not. Did you know this wasn't working? And it's crazy because, you know, Cal, if I think about some of the papers and stuff that were done over the past year, you know, we talked about the fraud. 40% of job postings are fake. They're not real, right? And so like we're just cannibalizing our candidates' experience. I don't know what your thoughts are about the easy apply button, but that I think all right, let us have it.
Before AI, I said this, okay? I could probably find a podcast where I said this many, many years before anyone ever said ChatGPT. Literally, my question when someone showed me Easy Apply was, why does ZipRecruiter hate us? That was my verbatim response. They actually won't let me talk to the CEO because I said it to him. So why do you hate us? Because I do not believe in that whole line about if you really want the job, you'll put in the effort. Okay. So I want to be really clear. I think that is toxic as hell. I wish we could remove it from the recruiter vernacular because it makes getting a job feel like an Olympic trial. Like you just got to be fast and strong enough to get to the end. And it's like, no, I need to be qualified for the job. And that's what we're trying to figure out. And Easy Apply does not give us enough information to know if someone is qualified for the job and allows us to accelerate the problem. That's one of the number one issues in AI and recruiting right now is that we accelerated processes that weren't ready. And just like physics, if you shake something hard enough, stuff's going to come loose if it's not tied down. And that's what's happening with our process. We are shaking it hard enough, all the problems are getting loose.
Yeah. No, it's if you look on LinkedIn, you'll see people that are applying that'll say, look, I'm one of 3,000 people that applied. They never hear back. right? And we're in this moment in time where candidates aren't trusting and employers aren't trusting and recruiters and TA folks don't know what to do because they're kind of caught between the middle. So no longer are the days of just trying to justify why this person's a good fit for this role, because we all know about mismatch on requirements. And let's like really out there. I had a manager one time tell me, Kat, I want this person for this amount, and they have to be on site 5 days a week, and they have to travel 75%. And I went back to them. It was a tech role. I went back to them. I said, there's 3 of these in the United States. There are 3 people that hold this certification in the United States. So let's talk about if this is really what you're looking for, because here they are and here's what their salary is. So
Been
we
there.
know that we're already, we're dealing with that, and we're in this interesting point in time where there's no trust. People are trying to navigate with little to no understanding. And then we've got innovators like yourself that are coming in and saying, okay, let's take a beat. Let's talk about the people first. Let's build trust. Let's make sure this is fair. So with your just vast knowledge that you have, and we're looking at the coin both sides, because we want to empower candidates to have meaningful, purposeful, dignified work. That didn't come out easy. And then we want employers to be kind and mindful and thoughtful about the experience. So I know you're working with organizations on behalf of the candidate population. Thank you for that, by the way. And Greenhouse is a great product. What is your advice to candidates navigating this mess? Because we know that our organizations are actively trying to improve, but in the moment, in the now, how do we help them? What guidance could you give them?
You know, think I want to start by just saying, like, you need to give yourself a lot of grace. I've been in this industry for almost 20 years now. Okay. And I have never seen a period like this where we have singular days where there are more layoffs than I've seen in entire reporting periods on job reports. Okay.
Yeah.
And to like give you context, today, the day that we're talking, which is not the day you're listening, but today there were over 100,000 people laid off from corporate roles at companies like Amazon, Target, and UPS across this country. UPS did over 30,000 layoffs today. And I'm pausing to allow a little bit of air on that because that's in addition to the wave of federal workers who have now entered the
Yep.
workforce, people who had no expectations of doing that. And I say that confidently because both of my parents were active duty military who both did plus 25 years in the military. I know that personality very well. These people had absolutely no plans of going into corporate America and finding jobs. They had no plans of finding jobs ever again. They are in part of the federal government system. You stay there
Mhm.
once you get in. Now, with that said, knowing how much talent is on the market, that's why we're going to start with grace. The second thing I'm going to tell you is get really good at being findable. I just did a post over on my LinkedIn. You'll be able to find it. I'll pin it to make sure that anybody listening to this now or later can access this. But I want you to do the things that make you findable to recruiters. So we need to work backwards, just like that AI picture. If a recruiter is looking for a VP of marketing, often, especially a junior recruiter, their very first step is to open up LinkedIn and type VP of marketing. You need to make sure that you show up. You need to start getting really specific about your skills and the projects that you want to work on and the role that you want next. Things like making sure that your title is the job you want. None of that fluffy crap about I'm a innovative, creative, big thinker. We, us. The pronouns we, us kill me every time. I'm like, you literally are using the best real estate on your entire LinkedIn profile to make a point. Stop. You know, that is about making you findable. I think that's the number one. And the other thing that I would tell you is to seek out connection. It all goes back to trust. And as much as recruiters need to earn your trust, I want any job seeker who's listening this to remember that your community is one of the most significant indicators of quality life. And that is
Mhm.
where most often you will find a job. I tell people if you've had more than 3 jobs in your life, your network should always be the very first place you start by looking for your next gig.
That's really, really good guidance. I love that. And I'll sprinkle on top what I tell people because I think it's valid. Your LinkedIn, by the way, anybody watching, Kat's LinkedIn is spot on. It's clear, it's concise. You know exactly what you do. You know exactly what you offer. You know your value. Like it's no question. And what I tell people when they're actually going to either do their LinkedIn or they're going to do their resume is for every place you work, think of the top 3 things that you contributed to that organization. Not I mopped the floors or whatever. Just I kept us, safety free for 6 months, whatever your impact was, or I, generated this much revenue, or I saved
Yes.
this much money, whatever it is for you, that at the end of the day, that's what you got a gold star for. Those are the things you list. That's what they're going to look for. And I tell people too that, and I like that you tapped on it. We've both been in the business for over 20 years. Recruiters, there's some that are really good and there's some that are just learning, and you have to help them and have grace with them. So I think a lot of candidates get frustrated and take it out on recruiters, not knowing the bleeding hearts usually of the recruiters begging managers to talk to these candidates. They really do care.
Yes, I'm so glad you brought that up. And no bashing recruiters on your LinkedIn.
Yes.
Oh my
Yes.
God. Do you know how many people I have had comment on my stuff being like, you're a snake oil recruiter who just ruins people's lives? And I'm like, bro, I am connected to 27,000 recruiters. Please don't show off in this way. This is not the place. This is not the time. Go have a conversation at your local bar or with somebody at your house, not on LinkedIn. The recruiting is just like customer service. Some of it's really good and some of it's real bad. And we just fall into the middle. But I can tell you that complaining on the internet's not going to help you get this off.
Well, and I can't tell you how many times I've had recruiters come to me and they're just so frustrated because the manager won't look at it. And I said, look, I know you love Bob, but Bob's not a fit. And they've said no. So let's stop trying to hustle Bob into this role. But there are certain recruiters, they feel it and they get passionate and attached. So I could tell the audience that the majority of people that are in HR and talent are in it because they really genuinely care about you. So don't be a jerk, right? Just kind of breathe a little bit. And then vice versa. I think recruiters are so burned out right now from all of this and fearful of their job. We hear the term job hugging. I mean, you'd be stupid if you didn't job hug right now. And it's crazy because I had a recruiter call me and I coached them every once in a while. And she said, can you believe that this candidate asked me what I liked about working here and why should they want to work here? And I took a minute and I said, I'm going to give you advice as a friend. I said, you're burned out because you 2 years ago would have died if a candidate came to you and said, oh my gosh, why do you like working here? Why would I be a good fit? Because you would be so astounded at their want and their willingness to be a part of it. But now everybody's agitated and irritated and just trying to like status quo, right? So going back to being human and holding grace for each other.
Yeah. Well, and I'm going to get a little woo-woo on this, but that's who I am. So we'll just deal. And I know you're a little woo-woo too, so I
I'm
feel
super
comfortable
woo.
sharing it. But, I think we all need to get back to our humanity and remembering where we came from. And I don't mean that in a boomer way of like, remember where you came from. I mean in that I believe that miracles beget miracles. I'm
Yes.
writing about this right now, and often I think we forget when things that used to be really big for us become small. I'll give a really simple example. Food security is something that used to be really big, a problem in my life because I worked at companies that did not pay me a livable wage. And I distinctly remember the part of my life where I had $29 after I paid all of my bills. And I was raised by military accountants, okay? So there was no, let me rack up debt. That was not an option. I lived on $29 and took no assistance. And I remember those times deeply. There are foods I cannot eat. There are pairings that I will never make again.
I can't eat ramen anymore.
Spinach. Spinach was the cheapest but highest nutrition item that I could buy at the store. And I remember eating so much spinach because it was $1.29 for the bag. And that went a long way. And I'm saying all of that because today that's not something I worry about. I don't have to think about, do I have enough money to pay the bill when when the waiter comes by? Do I have enough money to pay for all of the groceries I put on there? And today I consider that my miracle of gifting. And often when I feel like there's too many small problems, that's what makes me feel burned out. That's what makes me annoyed. That's what makes me pissed. And then when I start to think, that's a small problem that used to be a really big problem in my life, it helps me shift the perspective to realize that I can make that a miracle for somebody else. And I think when it comes to recruiting, there's something really powerful about that moment when you shift back, like you just said, and you push them back to that moment of like, you would have killed if someone had just given you that. That's such a little thing to her now because she's job hugging. She has a safe place to be, but that person doesn't.
Yeah.
And that could be that little bit of something that helps them. What a gift. Like we don't get to do big things all the time. That's not the nature of our life. We say no a lot more than we say yes. Why wouldn't you want to just let that miracle flow through? And hopefully the next big thing that comes up in your life is small for somebody else and they can give it to you.
It's all karma.
Yes.
You get what you give, and it comes back. And there's all these memes I've seen lately, like, isn't she lucky? No, she worked really hard to get where she is, right? So there's all these different things that are out in the universe right now with the working. And I know, obviously we're on Strategic Shift. It's sponsored by People Work. They do job fairs in the local communities and have a goal of hiring 100 people in a day and really giving back to their communities, which I think is beautiful. And I love what you're doing and that you're a trusted advisor to a lot of these organizations, especially tech organizations that need someone there to help keep it human, because it is tech, but it's very, very human centered. It needs to be. Yeah. And you're doing a great job with that.
Thank you. I think it's really, really important to have someone on your team who says, what about the person who has to do this? It's not just data. It's not just speed. It's not just a strategic agenda or whatever you want to call it. It's how do we change the experience for someone else so they feel good?
But I would hope that any tech organization out there listening hears that, because it definitely needs to happen. I know, from my mouth to your ears, and let's just make sure it keeps rolling. Well, Kat, it has been so amazing getting to know you, and I am going to go scour for your book, and I'm going to follow and support you. So you've got a new fan. Is there anything that you'd like to share that we might not have covered with the audience?
Honestly, I just want to tell them, go grab the book. I think in all of this uncertainty, I got the gift of learning how to navigate uncertainty on a very unconventional path by packing up all my stuff and moving into a van for 3 years. Yes, really. And while that might seem a little outside of your lived experience or the life that you want to experience, I can promise you that all of the hard things that I went through can help you in whatever you're figuring out. And I think that can be like my little gift to all of you, is to go get the book. It's called The Bounce Back Factor. It's on Amazon, or you can buy a signed copy from me on my website. And I will give you the real lessons that helped change how I live my life every single day and made it a lot easier.
I love that, lived experiences. And I'm Native American, and I come from the tribal belief of we always give back, and it's up and down. You always have to be in the middle, right? And kind of reaching and pulling each other. And I love that you're vulnerable enough to put your experience in a book, and what you've learned and how you've transformed to help others is such a beautiful thing. It really, really is. So thank you for that, because I know it could not have been easy, and I really am going to need to hear more about this van story, but there's more to come, I think. We're going to have many more conversations. So if the audience wants to reach out and connect with you, or organization wants to reach out and figure out how to fix their attraction and candidate delight experience, where would they go to?
Yeah, you can go to the number 3 ears, like the one on your head, 3earsmedia.com, or you can just search Katrina Kibben. I am the only Katrina Kibben in the world, and I like to make the joke that if you spell my name right, you'll find me, but if you spell my name wrong, you'll find a priest for the U.S. House of Representatives, and you will absolutely know that you are in the wrong place, because I am too gay for that job.
Oh my goodness, you're such a delight. Thank you for holding space for this audience, and for sharing your knowledge and insight, and for just keeping going on making all things better for humanity. So we really appreciate your time.
Thank you, Christy. And thank you to the team for having me. I appreciate it.
Our pleasure. All right, guys, see you soon. Thank you for listening. I'm your host, Christy Honeycutt. Be sure to subscribe to Strategic Shift so you never miss an episode. Tune in next time as we continue to explore innovation in the future of work. Until then, keep shifting.